Hey guys, I want to talk to you about a subject, and that subject is basically kind of the natural progression of development in Jiu-Jitsu. And where kind of our emphasis is and where the focus is usually at the beginning of our Jiu-Jitsu career. So, usually in the beginning of your Jiu-Jitsu career, because you're kind of the lowest person on the totem pole, meaning you have the least experience, the least amount of knowledge, in the beginning, what tends to happen is we always tend to end up in bad positions, meaning the less dominant positions, on the bottom of the mount or on the bottom of the cross-side or with someone on our back. And so, what typically tends to happen is because we're spending so much time in the non dominant position, usually the first thing that we have the ability to develop is our defense, our ability to just stay safe. Because anytime you end up in those bad positions on the bottom of the cross-side or the bottom of the mount or with someone on your back, or even sometimes if you end up on top in someone's guard, usually if you end up on top, you're going to be in the guard. If the person on the bottom has more experience than you, if they know what they're doing, you're going to basically be learning how to defend yourself. So that is a huge element to really focus on in the beginning, is the defense. It's such a huge element in jiu-jitsu, and it's so powerful because really that's what jiu-jitsu is based upon, is the ability to defend yourself, the ability to survive. And so because that's kind of the first thing that develops, it's so beneficial for our career, because what happens is as we progress through jiu-jitsu, the greater our understanding and ability to defend, the more comfortable we'll feel in these bad positions. The less likely we are to tend to panic and then use strength to try to accomplish our goals. The second thing that normally tends to develop once we understand the defense from these situations, and once we can start to survive and buy ourselves some time, is the ability to escape. And so really those two elements, the ability to defend, the ability to survive, and then to be able to get out, is what will get us to the dominant positions, which is kind of the next thing that we develop in jiu-jitsu. Once you start to defend, learn how to defend, then you'll have enough time to figure out a way to get out. And then once you get out, the next step is getting to a dominant position. And then once we understand how to get to a dominant position, the next thing that we'll develop, because now as we're understanding, developing our defense, developing our escapes, and getting to dominant positions, the next thing that comes is developing that ability to maintain dominant positions, really understanding how to keep that which we have just basically taken, which we've gained. And so that's super important, because that really helps to develop the last thing, which is the attack. Okay, if we're never in dominant positions, it's really difficult to develop the attack. So it takes that first. We have to be able to get to dominant positions, and the ability to maintain dominant positions for an extended period of time give us the confidence to be able to open up an attack. And a lot of people say that when you start to attack, you open up escape. So the greater your ability to maintain dominant positions, the more confidence you have, the more confidence you have in your attacks. But what I really want to focus on is basically defending and escaping. The defense and escapes in jiu-jitsu, which not only once you understand how to defend and start to escape, the main thing is it really helps you to develop your confidence. Once you know that it's going to be difficult for people to submit you, once you have the understanding that, hey, you can protect yourself and stay safe, what happens is you develop confidence. And with that confidence, there's a lot less, you tend to panic less, which is huge in jiu-jitsu, and we tend to use less strength. And that's another huge element that's really, really important in jiu-jitsu, is the conservation of energy and learning to relax and learning to basically apply technique. And so that's the other thing, is when you get into these high stress and high panic and these really panicked environments, it's really difficult to think clearly. And so by really focusing on developing your defense and your escapes in the beginning is going to be a tremendous help throughout your jiu-jitsu career. And you're actually kind of forced to deal with that in the beginning, but that is something that I think that we should never ever stop working on, even as you get to the into the upper echelons of your gym or your school, and you become one of the more senior students. you should always focus on putting yourself in bad positions so that you can continue to stay comfortable and pushing the boundaries of being in those bad positions. And so for myself, for example, that is something that I'm always working on, always developing, is my ability to defend and stay safe. And it's been tremendous in helping me to be able to relax and use less strength and less energy, because I know no matter how bad things get, I can still kind of work and escape and keep myself safe. So it's been huge. And like I said, it's something that is a never ending process. And even for the higher belts, what I do, and something that is really important to do, is if you know you can just completely dominate someone, say for example, if I'm training with a white belt or a blue belt or a purple belt, what you can do is you can let them attack and allow them to go deeper into the attack and deeper into the attack and see if you can still get out. Now, normally what will happen is you will allow people to get to a certain point where you can't escape and you can't get out and you'll have to tap, which is great because then you kind of understand your limits and you can start to understand how far you can allow things to go before it's too late for you. And then always you're constantly trying to push those boundaries. And so let's see if things can get a little bit further and you can still get out. And so by doing that, you can really develop your defense to an extremely high level. And that's one of the things that really made Rickson such an amazing practitioner, is nobody could catch him. His defense was probably the strongest aspect of his game because he could escape anything. He used to do demonstrations where he would allow people to lock in a fully rear naked choke. They would sit on his back, put the hooks in, lock in a fully rear naked choke, and he would tie his hands in his belt. He would have his hands in his belt, and he would still be able to get out. He would basically say, go, and he would still get out. And I've seen him do that with other submissions, allowing himself to be put in the arm lock and basically holding onto his arm and letting the other person go, see if they can basically get his arm before he could escape, and always kind of trying to put himself into these really terrible, uncomfortable positions and seeing if he could still get out. And he had developed that ability to really be able to get, it was almost like Houdini. He could get out of any bad situations. And I remember a lot of trainings with me, he allowed me, I remember one day, to get him in a crucifix. And I had the gi wrapped around his neck, and I had his arms, basically one arm in between my legs, one arm I was grabbing, and I had his gi wrapped around his neck, trying to choke him. And without him even trying to escape, all he was doing was making adjustments, subtle adjustments, so that I couldn't choke him. And so at the high level, to develop the defense, a lot of times it's just really subtle movements and tiny little adjustments which will help you to stay safe and which will prevent your opponent from basically being able to achieve the next step. And in that situation, basically the next step was me applying pressure for the choke. How do I apply pressure? And he was just figuring out a way to basically extend his body and move his neck away from the choke so that no matter how hard I tried to squeeze, I actually couldn't apply the pressure on his neck. I could never create the connection that I needed around his neck to create enough pressure to choke him. And then eventually I just had to give up on it. I was just wasting my energy. I had to give up, and then we kept going. But that ability to defend is so important, and it's something that even once we get to the higher belts, I feel it's something that we even need to spend more time and work on. And so it's something that we will never, ever give up working on. And the real key is to see if you can get out, still escape as things get deeper and deeper and deeper, and also to see if you can get out using less strength and less power. So that's another form of progression. That's another way that we can measure our progress in jiu-jitsu, is if we can execute techniques and if we can still achieve the same results using less strength and less power. And so a lot of times, in the early stages, yes, we can defend and get out, but it takes big explosive movements, huge movements. We really got to jerk our arm out of things and pull. And as you get better, you will learn to basically be able to defend using smaller and smaller movements. And that's really when you start to really develop a deep level of understanding of jiu-jitsu. So anyways, guys, hope that helps. And like I said, the whole art of jiu-jitsu, because it was basically created with the philosophy of smaller individuals. How can we develop an art for smaller individuals to be able to overcome bigger, stronger individuals? The defense was such a crucial factor in it, developing the ability to defend yourself. And one of the most powerful statements that Rickson ever told me is, his goal in jiu-jitsu was always to develop himself so that he would be invincible. And what that meant to him was that it doesn't mean that he could beat everybody, but it means that nobody could beat him. It means that nobody could ever finish him, nobody could ever stop him. And so if he could walk away from a fight unhurt, or without tapping, or if he could walk away from a fight without getting injured, that was considered a victory for him. And so really it came down to developing that invincibility, which is all based upon the ability to defend.